like many of you, well, most of you, I have multiple identities. And I suppose I'm told that mine are a bit more complex, and after all, that's why I'm invited here to speak with you today. So let me explain further. I am a woman, first and foremost, and I'm very proud of that womanhood because, for me, it has not come easy. It has been with struggle. To be that person, that girl, the it girl, capable, confident, sexy but not too sexy, beautiful when I want to be, and at times I could be beautiful. My legs are long, I'm tall, which in itself objectified me to the unknowing public. The stares, the looks. It's something that's hard to get used to until age advances and you really don't give a rat's ass anymore about what they think about your body parts, and you move forward. And also a partner to cooperatively, togetherness, partnership, accomplishing great things, rarely alone, and a lover. Fortunate to have had many lovers. Okay, not so many lovers, but a select few. And a recipient of passionate love, deep love, caring love, sensual love. And also a practicing physician, an obstetrician, who has mentioned I, over 20 years, delivered 2,200 or so babies, somewhat north of that. And during that process, I became enmeshed in the lives of the women I cared for. I was part of their struggle to bring newborns into the world, to struggle with them, to feel that pain, the empathy, the low back pain, the weeks of nausea. I understood that. I was there with them. I was part of that experience for so many. And the blood, so much blood. In pregnancy, the blood volume increases by 40% to prepare for delivery. But to see that blood without even a flinch. And the amniotic fluid, sometimes soaked in it at the end of a day. My socks still wet when I went home, and the dog looked at me, sniffed my socks, and just simply said, woof. Knowing that life was with me. And sometimes having to reach deep inside another woman's body to find a small part, a hand, no, a foot, yes, the second of a breech twin pulled down and out and brought into the world beautifully, skillfully, confidently. To have been there for so many. But also a parent, clutching the hand of my little son and walking the beach, making lunches for my gang as they came home after a full day of fun, wiping noses seemingly constantly, bottoms, drool from the corners of a mouth, tears from the eyes, sometimes picking lice during a school outbreak one year from the nits on their hairs at their head. And as all kids do, they grow. And as I introduce my kids slowly into the world as now confident young adults, Andrea and Julia and Thomas, now 21 years old. And having done this all, raising them with another woman, I suppose, would be considered unusual. Not that unusual anymore, but not the end of the story, because the complexities are even deeper. You see, I was assigned male at birth. I was born with a penis, and apparently a penis means you were going to be destined to become a man someday, or at least that's what they told me. And after all, that's what they tell you. But as an obstetrician, you realize that genitalia all comes from the same place. We all come from the same soup. The tissues are all the same. We all start out female. And in fact, in embryology, that process often isn't complete at a surprisingly high rate, a condition known as intersex, where the genitalia even is represented by diversity. But I took the cards I was dealt, and I played with them. Quite a bit, actually. And I was loved by my mother and my father, and I really grew up in an idyllic environment in southern Wisconsin. I was a tall, thin kid, but I had a lot of friends, and a bicycle, and a fishing pole, and I pretty much went wherever I wanted. There were no cell phones, no curfews, no restrictions, and in small-town America, we could go anywhere. Doors unlocked, nothing but the freedom of our minds and the flow of the river and the depth of the lakes. But that all changed when our family moved in my ninth grade, from rural Wisconsin to suburban St. Louis. And I assumed a new identity through no choosing of my own, because I became, at that time, a bully victim. And if you've never been the victim of bullying, you cannot imagine the shame, the pain, the fear, knowing that you would have to walk a different route each day to school or each day to class. The utter pain of being driven into the ground on a daily basis or your head into a locker. Glasses broken, but spirit intact. And I still remember the names of my bullies. Brian and Steve and Tim. And I don't hate them anymore, or rather, I really never hated them, because they made me stronger. And this too shall pass, and time moves on. And I didn't perish. As I found out later, in a study in 2009 by the National Center for Transgender Equality, that more than half of transgender bully victims at one point attempt suicide. I did not perish. I persevered through the love and strength of my family and through my own hard work. And I attended the University of Wisconsin in Madison, where I excelled, and the University of Minnesota Medical School, where I was elected class and student body president. And then the University of Washington, where my fellow residents elected me chief resident, and then teaching award of the year. But I was deeply unhappy in medicine. Somehow, somewhere within my skull, there was another person. I could not deal with those feelings, but they would not go away. I tried to outrun them. I tried to be the person they said I was. I even grew a beard. I joined a bowling team. I did the things men are supposed to do. I played golf with the guys. I shook hands like a man. I walked like a man. I talked like a man. Some thought I must have been in the Marines, I was so good at it. And I married to the same person you saw before, who after all these years has stayed with me. A partnership. 28 years together. No longer married in that sense. Legally, yes, but effectively, no. Different lovers, different lives, but still partners, as we will be forever. But eventually, things must change. My soul was rotting, and I needed to become the person who I was meant to be. And so there comes a point of actualization where you simply have to do what you have to do. And so in that short period of time, while serving as department chairperson at the largest hospital in Seattle, Mark became Marci. And so began a new change, a new career, a new identity. And my practice thrived. And I continued on until I met this man, Dr. Stanley Biber, who's known as the father of sex change surgery in the United States and around the world, and at one point had performed more than 2/3 of all the world's sex change operations. And Dr. Biber, working in a very small town in southern Colorado by the name of Trinidad, once was on the show Jeopardy, and was the answer, or I should say was the question to the answer, what is the sex change capital of the world? And so Dr. Biber instilled in me a thought, a consideration that maybe I too would come and join and assume a new identity, and that being transgender surgeon. And so several years later I moved to Trinidad, and since that time I've been changing boys into girls and girls into boys, male parts into girl parts, penises into vaginas and vaginas and vulvas into penises. And that's what I do. I literally deconstruct and reconstruct genitalia. Amazing. And in so doing, became a bit of an icon myself, a media sensation on numerous shows, including even Oprah. And when you make it to Oprah, you know you've made it. But also CBS Sunday Morning and so many other programs I can't even mention. And Katie Couric is on my speed dial and came to our party last week in my honor in New York City. And then I met another man in 2009 who further added complexity to the identity that I take. This man, Pierre Foldes, worked with Mother Teresa, Gaza victims of war, repairing obstetrical fistulas around the world and traumatic injuries as a result of shrapnel and IEDs. Pierre Foldes is his name, and he practices in suburban Paris. And so I worked with him in 2007 and 2009 to learn another aspect of my career, building on the fact that I work with the genitalia, is to help restore not just visual images of the clitoris, but functional, sensory restoration of the clitoris after a practice known as female genital mutilation. And if you know what that is, it is a ritual procedure done to young girls and women to control their sexuality, leaving these women with little or no sexual feeling and beginning lives of misery as they're simply unable to respond sexually, sometimes with pain, sometimes with severe pain, sometimes with vulvas that are so sewn shut in their severest form that only menstrual fluid and a trickle of urine can drop through. Sometimes so severe that babies are obstructed, and so the babies rupture through the bladder or the rectum, creating additional problems, and then being ostracized because of sanitation. So it's a cycle of misery that's perpetuated on mistruths and lies, but also with a cultural basis, so very complex, hopefully ending in our lifetimes. But I began to work with Dr. Foldes, and then in our clinic in San Francisco, to help these women who came from all over the world, westernized, those who could come, because we don't charge for the surgery. But the average income throughout much of Africa is less than $100 per year. And so these women, even if the surgery is done for free, cannot afford to come to San Francisco. And so we went to Africa, and first we built a hospital in Burkina Faso. We went there, but we had troubles with Al-Qaeda, who firebombed the hotel we were staying at a year ago, and so we are not going back. But later this year, actually just 3 weeks away, I'm going down to Kenya. And I'll be in Nairobi for 2 weeks, where we have 57 women on queue who will be operated on over 2 weeks. And I'll be training 4 doctors in Africa and another one from Australia who's coming to learn the procedures. Because 130 million women affected, we cannot do all the surgeries. I cannot do all the surgeries. My plate is full. But my life is enriched by this experience. And I'm gifted to do what I do. I'm amazed at the wonderful beauty around the world. I'm proud to be part of it. And the most amazing thing about the stories that I hear from the women who come for surgery to have their clitoris restored is that of all the reasons given for having the surgery, the one that strikes me and the one that they all say is that they feel that their identity was stolen by genital mutilation, and that the goal of surgery for them is to restore their identity. And so, in my life with the transgender community and the life I lead with these women, I offer the one thing that I think should all sustain us, and that is hope. Thank you.